Hello, once again, you're listening to Nisi Carbone with Holistic Health. The Professional Supplement Center sponsors Holistic Health. They're an independently owned business that has an on-staff consultative nurse, and they carry a full line of vitamins, supplements, and other natural products which can be shipped all over the country. The Professional Supplement Center is located at 5441 Palmer Crossing Circle in Sarasota. For more information, the website is professionalsupplementcenter.com. That's professionalsupplementcenter.com. This is Holistic Health. I'm Nisi, and today my guest is Stephen Shepard, author of Embracing Your Paradox and Core Pattern Restructuring practitioner. Stephen Shepard is a Sarasota native and graduate of Ringling College of Art and Design. Stephen designs, produces, and directs projects for film, print, television, and radio. His client list includes MTV, Motorola, IBM, Universal Studios, NBC, and Blockbuster. Stephen was thrilled with his successful business, yet was intrigued by the interpersonal relationships and psychological aspects of the people he was dealing with. He noted struggles amongst people who are outwardly committed to the same goals, but were creating roadblocks or even sabotaging the success of those goals. This interest led him to explore irrational patterns of behavior and self-beliefs, and ultimately resulted in his creation of a process and system which he calls Core Pattern Restructuring. Stephen Shepard is a certified facilitator of self-mastery systems and is trained in conscious languaging, priority listening, sacred body translations, bio-optic holography, and outcome facilitation. That really is quite a list. Congratulations to you for successfully navigating all those things.
Yeah, I guess when I find something that interests me, I really jump in.
I guess so, which is probably what makes you an expert on core pattern restructuring and leads me to my first question, which is, what is core pattern restructuring?
That's a great question. Basically, the elevator speech that I give to people is it's a very quick way to discover and help reveal and also provide tools to resolve hidden, unconscious patterns of self-sabotage. And these can be emotional, physical, and sometimes spiritual issues that a person perhaps may have come here in their life to go into
this world.
I know this is kind of big picture stuff I'm talking about, but yes, this is what I've come to believe from my own experience, is that each one of us comes here with a very specific set of certain stresses or issues that are hidden from us for a good deal of our life, and then start to be revealed over time. And unless we discover what they are and resolve them, we trip over them a lot. Let's put it that way.
So when you say they start to reveal themselves, the revelation is not necessarily apparent, but rather is revealed in self-destructive ways that we either speak, act, behave,
yes,
choose.
There's some clues to know if people are dealing. Every person I work with, and I know personally on some level, is dealing. We all come with these patterns. Some people just tend to actually deal with them or are less affected by them throughout their life. They find coping mechanisms or their own personal strategies that help them to live their life in a very fulfilling way and have more personal power, is what I call it, or more personal authority. On the other side of the spectrum, there are a lot of people that have addictions of all different kinds. A lot of people that are considered what I call injustice collectors. And these are people that are constantly feeling frustrated at the way things are in the world, or they're always looking at the things that are happening that are quote unquote unjust. And they carry around a very strong feeling of this injustice.
So they're victims.
Basically, yeah. It's
people in the world are always doing things to them. It's not them, it's everybody else.
In a way, yes, that's a great way to kind of reduce it. But, people with addictions are dealing with, again, a lot of unconscious issues from very early in their life that cause them to either not have enough or not get enough, or to feel unappreciated or not able to express themselves in some way. And so they're trying to compensate for it by doing these things. But unfortunately, they're very self-destructive behaviors. And what core pattern restructuring specifically does is it helps us discover what our main complaint is now in life. Like, this is the beautiful thing about it. It's a great way to discover, no matter how complex or weird the problem is, if we just go with what's for you right now in your life that's really frustrating or that's causing the issues, we can backtrack it to however the conscious mind at that time took on a belief system that was irrational. And now it's kind of what I call, it's like a computer script. It's running a code that inside says A plus B equals F instead of A plus B equals C. And once we find that equation and we reveal it to the person and say, this is why you're creating these experiences in your life that cause pain or frustration or that are illness, because it plays out in people's health issues. Once they see that, it really is a liberating experience. It comes, oh my gosh, wow, I hadn't looked at it that way. I see it now. And then we create a very specific set of tools to help them rewrite that code. So it's kind of like reformatting a hard drive. We have to go into that original script, and that's what my work with priority listening and conscious languaging does, is we really listen to the words that we use in our life, because the language is the core of how these scripts get created. So
how far back in their life does a person go when they're working with you on core pattern restructuring?
Well, I've had people have memories come up when they just do the facilitation process that are maybe early as 3 years old. I had a few people that had that. Some people, just goes back to their teens or their 20s. They'll have an experience that happened. It really doesn't matter how far back they go. What matters is the imprint of the traumatic or dramatic situation that they were in, that either they perceived or that they experienced, and how that imprint of that trauma created a certain belief system or core pattern that is now not working for them anymore.
Okay, so at the time an incident happened, they felt it emotionally, mentally, physically, and in order to protect themselves from it, they developed some sort of a pattern, as you refer to it, that shielded them or buffered them from that experience. Is that what you're saying?
It's common in psychological circles. It's suppression of a traumatic experience. So suppression. So if we can't handle the pain of something, we don't have an adult or caretaker to come in at the point early in our life, or even in our teens or 20s, if we don't have somebody there to help us resolve at the point when something really traumatic happens, what happens is we carry that pain and the body holds on to it. It suppresses it. And there's a belief or a thought at the time of the experience that the person has that they make up to be true about the experience. And because it's made up to be true, the subconscious kind of takes it on as a literal fact and then believes that the person chooses to keep experiencing this over and over again because it's what they basically programmed themselves to believe. And so the subconscious, in a way, is designed to play out these scripts over and over and over again.
All right. Are there key patterns or events that you address with your clients? 3 key points, for example, that you address or cover with most of your clients when you go into core patterning with them?
Yeah, there's a couple of I call them the philosophies.
All right.
And the philosophies help us to approach basically how to understand that why is this happening to me again? Because that's another big question to know if you've got core patterns. If there's ever a repeat that we say to ourselves or we keep feeling over and over again that goes, why does this blank, blank, blank keep happening to me again? That's another great way to understand or to determine if you have a pattern playing out.
Right.
Because they just do. No matter what relationship you try and get into, no matter what different job you try and go into to get away from the previous pain or experience you were having, it doesn't matter. It will keep recreating itself over and over again, this pattern. So that's a really good way to find out. So one of the philosophies that I share with clients to answer your question that's really important is to realize that, first of all, these all happen for a very important reason. These are not, at least in my experience, that from what happened in my life, they were not random things, even though they look like it to me.
You mean the traumatic events are not random?
Or the repeat of these stressful patterns. It was almost, this whole idea of a victim approach to life that we were just talking about, that we feel like there's a certain injustice happening and why does this keep happening to us? And I haven't done anything to deserve it. It's their fault and blah, blah, blah. It's pretty common for us. We're in a very blame, shame-based culture where everybody's judging and criticizing one another. And really what my work is about is taking a whole new level of personal responsibility. Part of one of these key points you asked about that's important for that is, first of all, accepting the fact that everything happens to us for a reason. And that this reason may be much bigger and much more hidden to us than we have tools or in our society, groups, organizations that can really help us see. Religion's tried really well, psychology's tried, they've all pretty much failed. I mean, I'm not trying to diss any particular modality, but there's a lot of failure going where people go, well, that didn't work for me. There's got to be a bigger answer for me or something else that I can start researching to help me really figure out how to take authority in my life again and to feel that it all makes sense, because we're all here to try and make some reason and understanding out of our lives.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
All right. So you look at their belief system. Do you look at their, I believe you refer to it as secret attachments? What would a secret attachment be?
The secret attachment, this is where, remember we were talking about the unconscious.
Yes.
And when we experience traumatic effect, what we find is that because we're pleasure-based beings, if you really think of it, if we reduce human beings down to a very simple state, we are pleasure-based. Everything about the clothes we wear, the type of car we purchase, how we decorate our homes, how we color our hair, how we cut our hair, everything about what we do is really pleasure-based. In fact, if you were to go into your home and say, Nisi, you show me one thing in here that you have that you got because you didn't want it. The chances are, unless it was a gift somebody gave you didn't ask for it, and you just felt guilty, everything in your home and your life is based on something you found pleasurable. So one of the things that I've come to understand about our pleasure-based nature is that because our subconscious holds the keys to so much of what we're experiencing in life and how we interpret our reality, that getting to understand the subconscious and how it works is really important. So these secret attachments that I'm talking about, our subconscious in a way is a 100% literal program computer in a way. It just takes information in, it stores it, and then it repeats it back to us, and it helps bring it into our reality.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is what I found is if we do not resolve, meaning these unresolved issues from our past, things that were traumatic and difficult and extremely painful. And when I say painful, it can be physical or just emotionally painful. I perceived what somebody said to me as being very hurtful. I took it personally. And
when perhaps they were just making a general statement.
Yeah, but how I perceived it.
Right, the way you took it.
I took it, that went into some level. And now, for whatever reason, every time I turn around and meet somebody new, they tend to keep saying that same thing to me over and over again. I keep experiencing people saying things to me that I don't like. This is like a pattern, right? So what I found was the subconscious simply says, well, if you didn't resolve this and you're putting a lot of attention to it because you, quote unquote, don't want it in your life. Yeah, that's another key. The more we don't want something, the subconscious doesn't look at it as what we don't want. It just simply says, what you put your attention to, I will bring more of to you. So even if we're in an avoidance consciousness of something, it'll bring more to us. So these secret attachments.
I just need to really go over that for a minute, because I'm not sure that people really understand that what they think about is what they project, and what they project is what they receive. It's sort of like a magnet. And so if you're projecting something positive, the chances are good you will receive something positive. If you are projecting something negative, then the chances are good you're going to receive something.
And I completely agree. What's still quite mysterious about this, I know a lot of very positive people who consciously are doing a lot of things to, like positive self-talk, and they're doing a lot of positive things in their life, but inwardly they're feeling very negative. And no matter how much outwardly they do positive, they get the opposite in return. And so again, that's part of where the frustration is. Why is it I'm doing so much good and I'm working so hard to be positive? Why do I, quote unquote, keep feeling
it's a paradox, actually.
That's exactly what it is. It's the paradox.
So I'm working full out, top speed, at every possible positive thing I can think of, yet I still have negative results or unpleasant experiences. Why is that?
And the answer is the unconscious has a secret attachment to those painful experiences.
Okay.
That's why they're called secret attachments. So sometimes they're easy for us to see in other people. In fact, generally, we can all think of a story where we've known somebody who was in a relationship that, quote unquote, was less than healthy.
Right.
And that person was constantly complaining and saying, I really don't like how I'm being treated or how I feel, and it's time for me to move on and do something. And yet they never do. Or if they do leave the relationship 3 months later, they're back with that person again, and you're scratching on what is this person doing?
And they ask you for advice, and you give them advice, and they ignore it and go back and do the same things over and over again.
Yes.
And what's the definition of crazy? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results?
Yes. Exactly. So the reason a lot of us have challenges in the world, quote unquote, really taking control and changing things that we don't like about ourselves or we don't like that are happening, is because we're consciously trying to fix something that's hidden on a subconscious level. And so what core pattern restructuring does is it's a very helpful set of tools to really go in and quickly, we're talking less than 4 hours worth of work.
Really? Because this sounds like a lengthy process. This sounds like, you're going to put me on a couch in your office and I'm going to see you once a week or twice a week for,
Yes, it's magical. I've spent, 8 years total accumulating different tools and understandings in how to facilitate people to see and recognize these patterns, and then find a very specific set of replacement programs, so to say, for a person that has a script that's really off. It's specific to every person, so no two people I work with are the same. And that remedy, when they speak it or decree the new truth for themselves and they start to embody to rewrite the pattern, they go through the most amazing shifts. I mean, I've watched people physically change in my presence, like their eyes change color. I've seen their faces light up. I've seen them break out into complete sweat. It's because when you meet this paradox, when you meet the exact opposite energy that cures so-and-so, so to say, the unconscious pattern,
Right.
it literally, it's like two waves crashing together. So there's some type of an experience that always happens for my clients.
Wow.
And then for following days and weeks and months afterwards, to go through different levels of that wave. So it's kind of like an onion being peeled back. So the more they work with it, the more the pattern starts to reveal more subtle aspects of itself and more how it plays out in relationships, how it plays out with our work, how it plays out with our health and abundance. We can start to see how one pattern can affect literally every aspect.
Okay. So, and another terminology that people might be more familiar with then would be affirmation. You give them an affirmation to work with that is the opposite of their negative experience. Would that be something?
Very close to understanding it. Yeah, I call them a decree, because more than an affirmation, affirmations are kind of overused, I think, in the world today as kind of a way of positive thinking or positive this, and it's kind of a compulsive way to try and be good or say the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't about saying the right thing. This is about saying the exact energy and frequency that our heart and our spirit came here to be and to celebrate. But for whatever reason, we came in with a suppression of those experiences for the first part of our lives or for a good part of our lives before that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the next part I love talking with you about, because I don't know if we talked about in our question things about how the necessary need for this stress to go against our strength is what I found to be really important.
He's talking about the opposing force.
The opposing force. So to make it practical, so our listeners aren't just in this theoretical conversation.
Good.
I was just making it personal for me. So here's my story. So I came into the world and my family, for whatever reason, being punished every time I opened my mouth to express myself or to bring my thoughts or feelings up to be shared. They weren't valued. They weren't heard. They weren't appreciated, and
Sounds like they were discouraged.
They were discouraged. Yes, in fact, we were encouraged to just keep our mouth shut whenever we left the house with our family to go visit relatives. In fact, my mother didn't want us talking at all.
Isn't there a little saying, little pictures should be seen, not heard, or something like that?
Yes, something very true.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of pain about an inability to express myself early in my life. I didn't necessarily know this, but I know it now. And I went on to create relationships and experiences in my life where communicating for me was very difficult. In fact, I was actually born tongue-tied.
Really?
This I didn't find out until 5 years ago.
When you say tongue-tied, literally your tongue...
My tongue is attached to the bottom of my mouth, and I had such a short ability to stretch it that when I spoke, people were amazed that I was able to overcome this tongue-tied effect. So I actually had it cut free 6 years ago.
Wow.
But that's how my spirit, again, this is just giving you more evidence of the sacredness of how we come in with a certain limitation. My inability to speak with my tongue properly being tied.
Or if you want to look at it more positively, you come in with a purpose in life that you need to achieve, that you need to understand. And you might be given a limitation, or you might be given a traumatic incident or whatever as an opportunity to allow you to achieve
You're speaking
the goal.
You're speaking my layer. So,
Glad to hear it.
This is the beauty of all this. Is what I love about with my clients is we don't focus on what's wrong.
Uh-huh.
For me, we wouldn't focus. If I was facilitating myself, I wouldn't say, "Okay, Stephen, let's really look at how you're not good at communication."
By the way, I'm listening and talking with Stephen Shepard all about core pattern restructuring, in case you just tuned in recently.
I would look at the clues that was my challenge, and I would actually see the 180-degree opposite of that and say, that's the reason you potentially may have came here to experience that stuff, because you're actually here, Stephen, to be a great communicator. All right, beautiful voice.
You do.
Heard and to be valued and appreciated for what you have to say. One of the things that helps us understand more about the paradox is the way I overcame this before I had counseling and coaching to help me figure this out for myself. I went off, as you heard at the beginning of the show, I was an art director and designer for Fortune 500 companies doing television, print, sign campaigns, marketing, and broadcast for all these big companies.
So you're expressing for clients. That's still not for yourself.
I was being a great expressor for others, but I was still in my own world and with my relationships. I was challenged in my ability to express myself and be heard the way that I was asking to. So if you asked any of my friends, they would tell you I was the most amazing communicator they met. My clients would say, hey, he helped us figure out how to communicate our business and service in a way that our clients love and understand and get that they never did before.
Yeah.
But if you went home with me and heard me trying to communicate with my family or with my loved ones, all you heard was conflict. I don't understand what you're saying. I wish you would just get clear about what it is you need to say because I just don't get you.
Wow.
So this is what...
Wow. That's a paradox.
Exactly. And each person that I know and that I've encountered in my work, we all have this exact same thing. I mean, just to look at the bigger picture, if you look at every person that's really good at their profession, that generally is a clue to understand what their strength is that they're here to be for themselves and also what their weakness is. Mm-hmm. So heart surgeons in general, believe it or not, the majority of them die of heart attacks. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. That's kind of scary. Talk about just desserts.
Liver specialists all have issues dealing with their own personal livers and anger issues or forgiveness issues. So,
wow.
But yet they're a specialist at helping other people heal and fix their own liver. So this is part of the trick to my work, that helping people come on that side to see things in a new way. It can be a little challenging because it doesn't make sense to the rational mind.
Well, how is this different from the way an allopathic practitioner would approach someone who has a problem or negativity?
That's exactly it. They would just focus on the negativity and the problem. They would only see what's wrong with you and focus on either suppressing that symptom so that you don't have to deal with it, make you feel better for a little while longer. And so you have to, okay, what time are we going to schedule for next week to come in and get some more treatment so you can feel
it? Teach you how to ignore it or make it not as big a deal to you, as opposed to what you do, which is actually strengthening the person, if I understand you correctly, strengthening their weakness in order to oppose whatever it is they've been suppressing.
Yes, and really so we translate whatever we quote unquote experience as a burden or limitation. We see that as actually a blessing in disguise that's returning. So if you look at plants, the history of how plants work to be stressed in order to produce bigger fruits. Have you ever heard of this?
Right, sure.
Then the whole idea that we need to be stressed in order to actually develop a certain muscle, it's like weight training, resistance training is the same thing. This is kind of consciousness resistance training. So if you go to the gym to work out a certain muscle, you need to lift a weight or have a weight pulling in the exact opposite direction.
Right.
So what I've come to understand or believe is that spiritually we all have a very similar set of weights or pressures or stresses that we come here with in order to help us develop a strength in the opposite area.
Gotcha.
In my case, it was a lack of communication or suppression of it, and now I'm here to be a great communicator.
And you are indeed. Now, you're welcome. What parts of the body do you read or assess in order to translate some of your clients' difficulties?
Well, sometimes the body is the easiest way to get access to the consciousness of what's going on, because the body is a reflection of our subconscious feeling and expression. So a lot of people don't necessarily know what their issue is. They can't even name it. It's so hidden from their conscious awareness that their body then starts to express it. So what I believe is that our bodies are a mirror for our subconscious. And when we start to fail to resolve what it's helping us to wake up to share, to change, that it turns into an illness. It turns into a pain, or it can transform into a dis-ease of some kind in the body. So if somebody comes to me with a chronic issue, and that's where they'd like to start, because it's one of my ways in, I use sacred body translations as a technique to help say, okay, so if this is a back issue, got it. So I'll start to ask questions. I'll say, well, what part of your back? And depending on where on the back it is, I'll know the next question to ask. Okay. And then whether it's the left side or the right side. And each question that I ask brings the person information they start to answer. And so I don't I don't focus on the limitation anymore. I say, what's the limitation there for? And what's it actually asking for you to wake up to? So we have a personal experience of this, Nisi, and you have.
I did. I haven't been through the core pattern restructuring, but I did see you do the body languaging.
Right.
And it was amazing. I saw it with someone else in the audience that wasn't even aware, who was sitting in a chair in a strange posture.
Uh-huh.
And then I went up to the front of the room and you discovered some things about me that just through reading my body language. And this isn't crossing your arms in front of your chest, people. That's not the kind of body language.
Yes, it's very different. Yes.
Yeah.
Very sacred. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was highly effective.
Yeah. So we asked you, all I did was ask you a few questions. Yes.
Yeah.
And then your spirit brought forth the answers that answered why your back was in the state that it was. All I did is kind of act as a translator. I just help translate what your body was saying to what you were experiencing. And I asked you, is that feel correct? Is that what's going on? You said, exactly.
Yeah, it was amazing. Well, I can say that Stephen produces results in a very brief amount of time and is very effective. And if you would like to find out more from Stephen Shepherd, you can go to his website, which is www.neo-acupuncture.net. That's neo-acupuncture.net or neo-genesis, GENESIS.net.
Yeah, our websites are currently under construction, and so bear with us in the next week or so. We're going to have a lot more content.
All right. Well, you'll be able to find him nonetheless at one of those two websites, Stephen Shepherd. Next week, I'm going to be talking with Kevin Lusseman, who is an advanced master beekeeper. I'm Nisi Carbone, encouraging you to tell your friends about holistic health. If you missed any portion of today's show or would like to hear archived episodes, you can find them on toyourhealth.podomatic.com. That's toyourhealth.podomatic.com. In the meantime, here's to your health.